Yes, welcome into Sportsbet. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Thursday, April 25th. Big game breakdown. Another triple header in the NBA playoffs. Some important games as these series are now getting interesting, tied at a couple games apiece. Get to that coming up, and the play of the day. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Coming up, there was some Wizards money, Teddy. Some bad bets out there, and the Hawks, 7 players with double digits in points. No other team has done that in the postseason. That's from ESPN Stats and Info. The Wizards bench was terrible. Gortat played 35 minutes and had 2 points. And a shootout early. And Atlanta did whatever they want on offense. Even the series of 2. It's the opposite of the Boston-Chicago series. Home team has won all 4 games.
Yeah, won and covered all 4 games. And this one got us here at Sports, but it got me personally a significant wager on the Wizards last night. And, you know, I thought you pointed out Washington's 2 biggest weaknesses. Gortat got eaten up. I mean, he absolutely got eaten up both ends of the floor. And so did Morris. I mean, there was no answers for Washington against Howard and Millsap in the paint for Atlanta. That big run that the Hawks went on in the second quarter to take control of that game, that was all bench versus bench. They did the same thing late third, early fourth when the Wizards put their bench out there. Kudos for Atlanta. Again, they played really good last night. And all of a sudden, you know, a team that I didn't think was going to be able to get out of that series now, very live to do so.
All right, this was I'm not going to call this a bad bet because you ride streaks like this. This is the Royals-White Sox total bet down from 8 to 7.5. The Royals had played 10 straight unders.
Well, yeah, this is a bad beat. It's not a bad bet. You know, it's not all about starting pitchers. You know, this was about the bullpens, and in particular, the Royals bullpen, and in particular, a Royals bullpen that had kind of overachieved through the first couple of weeks of the season. Well, Peter Moylan, Travis Wood gave up the total by themselves, 8 runs in 2 innings, ending that streak of 10 consecutive unders for KC.
No, this is a bad bet. This was just like Game 2, where it was bombs away, and these teams couldn't miss from 3. The Bucks took money, and there was some money on the under as well. But the Raptors win 118-93. How about Powell? 25 points. He was terrific, and the Raptors got whatever they wanted on offense.
Yeah, I mean, 25 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals from Powell as well. And the switch to Powell has been the key to the series for Toronto. We read that great Dwayne Casey quote yesterday talking about how the team plays better with their back against the wall. And since they've gone smaller and quicker with their back against the wall, it's been much easier for them to attack that Bucks defense. The Raptors, plus 38 in the 68.5 minutes with Powell on the floor the last 2 games. He's got 21 assists on 41 made field goals last night. Much better balance. Lowry and DeRozan combined to take only 23 of their 71 field goal attempts. They only scored 34 of the 118 points. Toronto's at their best when they're getting contributions up and down the lineup. They've done that certainly in Game 5, as well as in that Game 4 victory in Milwaukee.
A lot of bad bets in Major League Baseball. How about this Rays Orioles total? Look at this, bet from 8.5 down to 7.5.
Yeah, I mean, a really rare game. You know, we talked about games that went from 9 to 8. You know, it's not crossing through a number. You're going to push at 9, you're going to push at 8. Here, it went through the 8, and of course, fell 9. Bettors love Chris Archer. The marketplace has absolutely have a lot of attraction towards Chris Archer. And they've been backing him successfully all season, but he kind of ran out of gas, lost his control, wore out a 3-1 lead into the bottom of the 6th. We ended up with 104 pitches, 5 walks, and allowed 3 home runs to a Orioles team. That's how they score, walks and homers.
Yep, some more streaks here. The Cubs, bad for the books, 20-cent move against the Pirates. They won 14-3. That thing was over in the second inning, and 7 overs in a row for the Cubs. And the last 11 times these two teams have played, 10 of them have gone over.
Yeah, and we can expect more over money today. You know, lots of Cubs money yesterday. And remember, that offense got off to a little bit of a slow start when it was cold at Wrigley. Well, it's not cold, and they're not at Wrigley right now. 53 runs scored the last 6 games, 17 hits and 9 walks last night. Addison Russell with the big night, 4 hits and 3 runs scored.
All right, up next, big game breakdown, the doubleheader on TNT. And look at this, the Spurs on NBA TV. Can Memphis get 3 in a row and turn this series around? Game 5 coming up on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Betting insight today. Pauly and Teddy, big game breakdown in a second. One more bet for the books, Teddy. Warriors minus a bet up from 6.5 to 9 with the Durant news. They opened up the game 22-3. They also tied a playoff record for most points scored in a first quarter, 45.
Yeah, 1-2-3 Cancun. What's that, man? The markets had this one pegged. Absolutely pegged. Nothing but Golden State money, and obviously the books got slapped around by this result.
You don't know what that is? That's Nick Van Exel.
Is it Van Exel?
That's Nick Van Exel when the Lakers were down 0-3 to the Jazz coming out of a practice.
1-2-3 Cancun, absolutely. Yes, very good. A good reference.
1-2-3 Cancun. Our buddy Trip Tepper sent that to me on Twitter as well. That's Barkley always talks about it too. The great Nick Van Exel quote when they're about to get swept. Let's start the vacation early. 1-2-3 Cancun. All right, SBR Odds Sportsbook Review. Big game breakdown. Check out the rating guide. Make sure you're betting with a trustworthy shop. This is 6 o'clock Pacific tonight on NBA TV. Grizzlies and the Spurs. Series tied at 2. Look at this. Spurs are 10. 186.5 the total. 111-82 San Antonio. 96-82. And then the epic rant from Fizdale. What a job he did here by calling out the officials, and it worked because the team got behind him. They paid his fine, and Conley's been terrific. Since the rant, 105-94 and 110-108, and Memphis shot more free throws. They were just 9 of 15 after the All-Star break. And Leonard on the verge of having one of the best series ever. Why is it tied at 2? Memphis has no answer for Kawhi. And look at this graphic. Kawhi in the series, 147 minutes, 130 points, 40 of 69 shooting, 10 of 19 from 3, 40 of 40 from the free throw line, 26 rebounds, 13 assists. True shooting percentage, 75.1. And how good is that? Of the players that played at least 25 minutes per game, Durant led the NBA at 65, Teddy.
Yeah. And again, this is a Grizzlies team. They went 9-15 after the All-Star break. Okay, they were losers. They had multiple extended losing streaks down the stretch of the season. Kawhi Leonard is having one of the greatest playoff series ever. And yet, we're talking about a series that's tied 2-2. Yeah, I mean, Tony Allen's hurt. Vince Carter can't guard him. Ennis can't guard him. Green can't guard him. None of those guys have a chance to guard him. So here is San Antonio in a situation where they're playing against a team that really wasn't that good down the stretch. And they've got the best player on the floor all the time. A player whose true shooting percentage is insane in this series. Well, why is the series 2-2? Because games don't get controlled by the 3 spot. All right, maybe you have LeBron and maybe Durant can do that. Kawhi Leonard hasn't been able to do that. Basketball, especially playoff basketball, you have a better point guard and the better center, you're live. That's enough to control the flow, and it's certainly been enough to keep Memphis in this series, because let's be honest, I mean, this is not something that we're talking about for the first time here on Sports. We've been going on and on about the point guard play. But look at it. Look at the numbers in the series, okay? Conley, nearly twice as many assists as Parker and Mills combined in 46 fewer minutes on the floor. All right. It's a situation where San Antonio, 16 teams in the playoffs, they're dead last in assists per game. Just 15.5 after finishing number 7 in the NBA, averaging close to 24 assists during the regular season.
I can't believe Leonard's not getting any help. I mean, he's the only guy that could score on the road. Here's Danny Green, quote, "We're finding some guys most of the time. Sometimes we're not moving it as well. We could be moving the ball better. We probably could use a couple others to make shots. Their others are playing really well right now. We have to get it from ours too, including me," end quote. And then you got Gasol, who gets the edge over any 5 that the Spurs throw at him. I mean, he was dynamite in that Game 4 win, and then the game-winning shot.
Yeah, look, Marc Gasol has been an all-star caliber center in recent years. San Antonio, well, I mean, it's a situation for the Spurs. I continue to look at that team and say they're a paper tiger. Someone's going to knock them out of the postseason. Someone's going to knock them out of the postseason sooner rather than later. I'm not convinced it's Memphis, but we know that the Grizzlies are a mentally tough team. We know that they play defense. And that great Danny Green quote talking about how San Antonio struggled to knock down shots in this series. They knocked down shots tonight. Obviously, they're live to cover this double-digit number, but it just feels a little bit high to me, Pauly. No way I can lay it here with San Antonio.
This is a huge tax on San Antonio. This is the pedigree here in Pop in a pivotal Game 5. I mean, it's one thing, we like them to win, but they got to win by 11 points to cash the ticket?
Well, remember, that this is another one of those series where, so far, the home team has won and covered. And certainly when we look at San Antonio's 2 double-digit wins at home in the first 2 games of this series, maybe this price tag doesn't look as bizarre as it does, considering how tight, how well the Grizzlies played over the last 2 games.
All right, well, if not Memphis, maybe the Rockets could get them. But first things first, they have to get by OKC, and they're at home tonight. 5 o'clock Pacific, game 1 of a doubleheader on TNT. Rockets lead the series 3-1, 7.5, 223.5 the total. And the place is going to be rocking because with all the traffic issues, they've been having trouble getting to the game early on. That's a big reason why the Rockets get off to these slow starts. The place is dead. There's no energy. People are stuck in traffic. So they're doing dollar beers and dollar hot dogs early and open the arena early and having Vernon Maxwell. They're Mad Max. Houston won 118-87, 115-111, 115-113 for OKC. Harden had a look at a 3 to win it, and then the epic game on Sunday, 113-109. I mean, it was a wild game the last 25 seconds. But Harden, you worry about that sprained ankle. But the supporting cast, we mentioned the bench points in Game 3. Nene, 12 of 12 shooting. Lou Williams, Gordon stepping up. They're helping out Harden, and he hasn't played well.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at this graphic from ESPN Stats and Info. Okay, the Thunder have led this series for 128 of 192 minutes, but they trail 3-1. Note the fact that the 128 minutes are the most any team has led in any series in the postseason. So they've been able to control a lot of the flow. What Houston's been able to do, at least in 2 of the 3 tight games, is have the better end game. And of course, each of the last 3 meetings in this series all been decided by 4 points or less. The regular season meetings between these 2 teams, very, very tight. Also, multiple meetings decided by 4 points or less. But, all of those factors point towards the Thunder. Hey, OKC plus the points. I've got my concerns there.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions here. Now, the Rockets haven't shot the ball well the entire series, but they're still up 3-1. What happens if the Rockets finally get off to a good start? What happens if they're finally knocking down threes and will maybe OKC? You remember what happened in Game 2? They sat Westbrook for 90 seconds and they blew that lead. In 90 seconds, and he was yelling at his teammates. So what happened if he goes to the bench again? And again, they're outscored by 40 points in this series when Westbrook's been on the bench. What happens if he goes out and they blow it and it fall apart? And if they go to Hacker Robertson again?
Look, Oklahoma City had their chance at home. We just talked about a couple of series that are tied 2-2. And OKC probably should be tied 2-2 right now. Look at what they were able to do. They shot 52% to 44% in those 2 games. Houston, from three-point range, just 30% from beyond the arc, compared to 45% for OKC. You can't ask for a bigger gap than that in terms of shooting percentages and three-point shooting percentages against a team like Houston, and yet they were outscored by 2 points over that 96-minute span. So you're right. What happens if Houston makes those shots? And will OKC have the glass chin in this ballgame? That's a big concern to me about the Thunder, because the Rockets come out swinging. I'm not convinced OKC, like so many teams that are facing a near insurmountable deficit, is going to have the energy and the ability to turn the tide and make the game close again.
Yeah, Harden has mentioned that they need to get off to a good start for once, and he's right about that. And here's D'Antoni, quote, "The hardest thing in sports is to close a series out. We all know that. We have to win this game for all kinds of reasons. Hopefully we'll have the right mindset. We have to start the games better. We haven't done that yet. There's a lot of things we can improve on. We also know we're going to take their best shot. We have to be ready to respond," end quote. Something to watch is Harden's ankles. He hurt his ankle in Game 3 and struggled in Game 4. And that's another reason they have to wrap this up in 5, and they can sit back and relax and watch that Memphis series if that goes 7 for Houston. D'Antoni, the best strategy of the series, the Hacker Robertson, who was 42% from the line this year, 2 of 17 in the series, and it forces Donovan's hand because he's the best defender on Harden. Then again, it's hard to bet an under if you go into that hack of somebody strategy because you get so many scramble points as well. But what does he do with, does he just bring the ball up and bring it to a crawl? Do you slow down the tempo when Westbrook goes to the bench? He's got to get some minutes off because he's totally gassed, and you saw what happened in Game 2 when he was 4 of 18 in the fourth quarter. Westbrook in, plus minus. +3 with Westbrook in, -40 with him on the bench. Harden, +25 on the floor, +12 with him on the bench. And Westbrook blew up at the reporter Barry Trammell. That's the whole key to the series right there.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that OKC has been so bad with Westbrook sitting, it does force down. You know, I mean, Donovan's got a lot of bad choices. You know, you have the best strategy of this series, the hacker Robertson. You know, Robertson, which has just worked over and over and over and over and over again. And if you take him off the floor, you got no chance to stop Harden. If you leave him on the floor, they're going to hack him, and he's going to miss free throws. Then you have the Westbrook conundrum with all of those minutes, and you know the minutes have piled up. As you mentioned, you saw what happened when OKC was forced to leave him on the court in Game 2, and everything fell apart late. -40 with him off, Pauly, versus +12 for Houston with Harden off. That, right now, the difference in the series, and it may well be the difference in Game number 5.
Yeah, and up next, this one reminds me of Toronto and Miami last year when Valanciunas and Whiteside got hurt. Series tied at 2, Clippers and Utah, the late game on TNT, coming up next on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping it up on SportsBit, Betting Insight today. Follow us on Twitter at Pauly Howard, at Teddy_covers. Last game, go to SBR Odds and Sportsbook Review. The doubleheader on TNT, the late game, Clippers at home to the Jazz. Clips 3.5, 196.5 the total. First 2 games stayed under. Last 2 games went over. And how about this story? The 2017 playoffs, ISO Joe. Joe Johnson been terrific. Won Game 1, and down the stretch of Game 4, the Jazz closed on a 25-11 run. Johnson scored or assisted on 22 of the 25 points. I thought this guy was finished, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Johnson's been making money for his backers in the playoffs. I can't think of how many series. Remember when he was in Phoenix? And they're like, I don't know if we should pay him. And Atlanta paid him all that money. And everyone's like, why are the Hawks paying Joe Johnson all that money? And then Joe Johnson, like, single-handedly won 3 playoff series for them with some ridiculous shots. A guy who's been in the league since 2001. He's got 43,000 minutes, 4,000 playoff minutes. You know, too old, too slow. Not in Game 4 he wasn't. Not throughout the series. What's he? 33 of 59 from the floor. That's 77 points in 129 minutes. And why was he the go-to guy down the stretch? Clips don't have a counter. You know, Clippers are using Luke Mbah-a-Moute on Gordon Hayward. You know, which means they got to find somebody else for Joe Johnson. All right, Jamal Crawford, no, can't do it. Joe Johnson, too strong. J.J. Redick, no. Again, Johnson, so physical, so tall, he beats those guys down in the post. Maurice Spates, you know, guarding away from the basket. It's no good matchups for Doc Rivers. And I'm telling you what, Johnson's as smart as it comes, as much filled with veteran savvy with that basketball. His quote, I'm just trying to get to a sweet spot, running pick and rolls with guys like Rudy. Of course, Rudy Gobert back in play for Utah. Quote, you're not going to get trapped as much because he's going to end up the one catching lobs. I make them kind of go get deep inside the paint a lot and make plays for everybody, not just myself. He's not the only one that had a great quote here, Pauly. Chris Paul had one too.
Yep, he said, quote, Joe got going. I don't know how many he hit down the stretch. We got to do better on defensive rotations. Joe was unbelievable with his pace and how to get his spots and stuff like that. We got to make it tougher, end quote. Well, something that could help is they get Austin Rivers back in Game 5. They need some help with CP3, who had 27 points, 9 rebounds, 12 assists, no turnovers. Still lost the game. Crawford had 25 points, but he picked up his 5th foul when they were up 7 in the 4th quarter, and that's when all hell broke loose. Doc said the foul trouble hurt us. That was a big foul. That 5th foul we had it going. That was huge because they had to take Crawford off the floor. That left CP3 out there trying to create without Jamal. I thought that was the big turning point in the game, and they were horrible on offense the rest of the way. I mean, I don't know what to expect the rest of the series, Teddy. Without Griffin now, and maybe Rivers gives them a spark, but it reminds me of Miami and Toronto last year where key players were out.
Yeah, I mean, look, when the Clips get 27 points, 9 boards, 12 assists on a day where their point guard has 0 turnovers, okay, Chris Paul's not going to play a whole lot better than that. When you can't win those type of games, that's a concern. But this has been a legitimate zigzag series. You know, we've seen it go back and forth, and we've seen the Clips take control. We've seen Utah take control. Now Utah seemingly has things in their favor. And I'll tell you what, in the series that are going like this, where it's not dominant home team or dominant road team, I'm much more inclined to take points in the game 5s and the game 6s than I am to lay them. And this is certainly one of those instances for me. I don't trust the Clips right now laying this price, not without Blake Griffin on the floor, because when Crawford's hitting and Paul's hitting and it's still not enough for them to win, what else can they do, really? I hope Austin Rivers is back on the floor and hitting shots too.
That's such a big loss. You're up 7 with 6 minutes. You can take a 3-1 lead and close out at home. And they let it get away. Money time. Play of the day. Where are we going, Teddy?
Let's go to Houston. Game number 706. We're going to take the Rockets minus 7.5. There's a little bit of contrarian in here. Certainly has been a very close series in 3 of the 4 games. And taking the points in general has been the way to go. But I'm not convinced that we're going to get OKC's best effort here. I think the Game 4 loss was a door slamming shut on the Thunder. And if the Rockets come out and play the way I expect them to in the first half and take over this game, I'm not convinced OKC is going to have a ton of fight. So, game number 706, Houston Rockets minus the 7.5. There's no urgency here. The markets are slowly moving this game in the other direction. Wouldn't be shocked if we see a 7 before tip-off. But we'll grade it 7.5. Rockets. That's our play of the day.
All right, it's getting fun now. A lot of these series are tied at 2. So now we're getting close to the second round with some marquee matchups. We're probably going to see some Game 7s. And we got the NFL Draft Round 1 Thursday. A lot of props to go over on tomorrow's show. And then we'll recap what happens in Round 1. Maybe there'll be another bong mask, the gas masks incident with Tunsil. Who knows? And then we'll get into Round 2 Friday as well. Loaded week coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com. Thanks for watching.